At the height of the day, when the desert sun turns merciless and the air itself seems to burn, the Egyptians felt the breath of a goddess. Her name was Sekhmet, the sun's own daughter, with the head of a lioness and fire in her throat. She was the one they begged for mercy because she was the one who could end them. Humanity had grown cruel, and the sun god had seen enough. So he sent her down to make them pay, and she very nearly unmade the world. And yet the same goddess who almost destroyed us is the one Egypt came to love as a healer. That is her mystery, destruction and healing living in a single body. Sekhmet is one of the oldest and most powerful deities in all of Egypt, worshipped for thousands of years along the Nile. Her name comes from a single word, Sekhem, which means power or might. She is, quite literally, the powerful one. She is the daughter of Ra, the sun god, and the Egyptians called her his eye, the part of the sun that goes out to punish his enemies and defend what is his. She was a goddess of war and of plague, the scorching heat of the midday sun, and, at the very same time, a goddess of healing. In the city of Memphis, she was the wife of Ptah, the craftsman god who shaped the world, and the mother of Nefertum, the young god of the lotus. Father, mother, and child together formed one of Egypt's holiest families, the Triad of Memphis. Her name is first carved into the pyramid texts, the oldest sacred writings in Egypt, and her shadow falls across the Book of the Dead as both a destroyer and a protector. The titles and symbols can wait. First, her stories, because Sekhmet is best understood through what she did. They all circle one idea. Power without a limit will devour even the thing it set out to protect, and the way back is never more force. This is her defining myth, kept in an ancient text called the Book of the Heavenly Cow. Ra, the sun god, had grown old, and humankind had grown bold, plotting against him and abandoning the laws of Ma'at, the order that held the world together. So Ra sent out his eye to punish them. He took the goddess Hathor and sent her to earth as a lioness, and in her fury she became Sekhmet, the powerful one. She fell on the world like fire, but rage, once it has tasted blood, forgets how to stop. The fields ran red, and Sekhmet kept killing. Even Ra, who had ordered the punishment, was horrified by how far it went, and he told her to stop. She could not hear him. So the gods made a plan. They brewed 7,000 jars of beer and dyed it blood red with ochre, then poured it across the fields in the night. When Sekhmet came at dawn, she saw a world that looked drowned in blood, and she drank deep, believing it was exactly that. She drank until she was too drunk to kill, and she slept. When she woke, the rage was gone. Humanity had been spared, and the destroyer had turned gentle. That story, it turns out, is only one chapter of a much older and wider tale. The Egyptians told of a fiery daughter of the sun who would grow enraged and storm away from Egypt entirely, off into the deserts of Nubia in the south. Sometimes she is Sekhmet, sometimes Hathor, sometimes the lioness Tefnut. The names change, but the fire does not. The sun god cannot rule without her, so he sends Thoth, the god of wisdom, to coax her home with stories and flattery. Step by step she is soothed, and as she crosses back into Egypt her fury cools into blessing. The lioness softens, the river rises, and the land turns green again. Read this way. The blood-red beer was never a one-time trick. It is a single beat in a rhythm. Egypt returned to again and again, the dangerous power that has to be welcomed home before it can give life. For all her fury, there is a softer side to Sekhmet that the war stories tend to bury. In Memphis, she was the wife of Ptah, the great craftsman god, who shaped the world on his potter's wheel. Their son was Nefertum, the god of the blue lotus and of perfume, who was said to have risen out of the first waters at the very dawn of creation. Consider what that means. The goddess of slaughter is also half of a family built around creation, and the mother of the god of sweet scent. Some older texts give her another son as well, Mahas, a lion-headed god of war who clearly took after his mother. Destruction and tenderness were never separate in her. They were the same goddess. From the pyramid text onward, Sekhmet is bound to the throne of Egypt itself. The pharaoh was said to be conceived by her and nursed on her milk, and to carry her fury with him into battle. To be Sekhmet's child was to inherit her power and her right to rule. And because she loved Ma'at, the justice that kept the world from chaos, her bond to the throne was also a bond to justice. A king who called her his mother was claiming the duty to uphold the law, not only the strength to enforce it. Here is where her two faces finally meet. Because Sekhmet could send disease, the Egyptians believed she could also take it away, and they built an entire art of healing around staying in her favor. Her priests were among the very first physicians in Egypt, named in an ancient medical handbook beside the ordinary doctors. As far back as the Old Kingdom, they inspected the meat served at festivals to keep sickness from spreading. One of the first times anyone understood that disease could pass from animals to people. And when a wave of plague swept the land during his reign, the pharaoh Amenhotep III raised around 600 statues of Sekhmet in dark stone, a litany carved in granite, begging her to lower her arrows and spare his people. Hundreds of them survive. They are why so many museums today hold a seated, sun-crowned lioness, staring calmly back across the centuries. There is one more way the Egyptians saw her, older and stranger than the rest. Some believed that underneath all of it lay a single lioness and sun goddess, whose opposite moods had simply been given separate names. In this telling, Sekhmet was the fierce face of Hathor, with the cat-headed Bastet as her gentle twin, the same power smiling instead of snarling. Over the centuries, the faces kept merging and dividing. She took on the nature of Mut, the great mother of Thebes, who could herself appear as a lioness, until the lines between them blurred into one another. Perhaps they were never quite separate goddesses at all, but different weather over the same fierce, life-giving sun. She carries a great many names, and almost all of them speak of power or of fear. The powerful one, the Lady of Flame, the Eye of Ra, the Mistress of Dread, and, gently, the Lady of Life. In image she is unmistakable, the body of a woman, the head of a lioness, the sun disk above her brow, and robes of red, the color of blood and of the desert at dusk. Her powers run from terror to tenderness. She breathes fire and sends plague, and with the same hand she lifts sickness away. She goes before the pharaoh in war, and she keeps the law of Ma'at. Her symbols gather around her story: the lioness, the sun disk, the rearing cobra, the color red, and the blood-dark bear that once stilled her hand. At heart she is fierce and fearless, an enforcer of justice, protective of those who honor her, dangerous to those who cross her, and, in the end, a healer. Sekhmet's greatest festival grew straight out of her most famous myth. It was called the Festival of Drunkenness, held at the start of the year when Egyptians drank great quantities of beer and wine, danced, and made music. They were reenacting the very drunkenness that had once calmed the goddess before she could destroy the world, coaxing her, year after year, back into her gentle form. It was not a small affair. Records tell of tens of thousands taking part, from priestesses to ordinary people to physicians. Archaeologists digging at the Temple of Mut in Luxor have uncovered the evidence, including a porch of drunkenness added to the temple by the pharaoh Hatshepsut. The festival mixed revelry and worship without apology. Getting drunk here was how you met the goddess and asked her to stay kind. Sekhmet lasts because she tells the truth about power. The same force that can level a city can also defend it. The same fury that nearly ended the world became, after rest, the thing that healed it. She does not ask you to trade your fierceness for gentleness or to pretend your anger away. She shows you that the fire in you was never the problem. Stopped, rested, and turned toward what you love, even your fiercest anger can become a kind of healing. The next time something in you burns, remember the lioness who drank until she slept and woke as a healer. The fire was always meant to be yours to carry. Even your fiercest anger can be turned to healing. The fire in you was never the enemy. Let it rest, let it cool, and turn it toward what you love, and the same heat that could have burned the world down becomes the thing that mends it.